Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Subculture. I'm Dave G, and joining me right now is my co-host.
I am not the other Batman.
And so we're going to start off today by looking at some news, and one that just came into my mind right now that we did not talk about off air, but I've just remembered. Robert Pattinson has tested positive to COVID, along with The Rock. So the Batman production is being postponed a little bit at the moment because they've got to try and get him over it and find out whether he infected anybody else while he was on set. Likewise, The Rock, who was actually planning on coming to Australia to do the production of the television series about his life, he has tested positive to COVID as well. So,
any excuse for the American actors and performers not to come to Australia.
Well, this is the thing. Like, it's kind of made us wonder what's going to happen now, because so many productions were coming to Australia. We've had countless announcements over the last couple of months of film production companies relocating to Australia. The Rock famously is bringing his entire production company over here to operate off the Gold Coast, and they were going to be doing the number one production they were going to be doing was a thing about his own life, which he's not actually in. He was just going to be the producer, but you've got to wonder what's going to happen there.
Well, there was a thing, I think a few months back, that Ron Howard was setting up something, I think in Melbourne.
Yeah, yep.
So where that sits now, who knows?
Yeah, well, we've had all these announcements over the past few months where multiple production companies have said that they want to get out of the third world country that is America and come to Australia to actually do some filming. But I think the new Thor movie is being filmed in Sydney. DC were looking at bringing their production over to use the Warner Brothers studios. And I was joking about America being a third world country, but just all the trouble that's there at the moment, a lot of companies have seen it better as to relocate to Australia at the moment. But if people keep on testing positive to COVID, I'm not sure how that's going to go, because Australia's been pretty hard with its borders.
And get it over with. Maybe that's the only way to get through it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the
big question on this is, did Robert Pattinson and The Rock catch it from each other? And if so, what's going on there?
Oh, I don't think they did, because Robert Pattinson's in the UK actually filming the Batman. What I'm finding really weird, though, is Batman wears a mask, which we've all been told to wear. The other production here in Australia, of course, that got struck down with Corona was The Masked Singer, another show where they're all wearing friggin' masks, and somehow they still get sick. So, yeah.
It's because they're wearing masks. Look, the fact of the matter is that if you're walking around every day wearing a mask, you're getting all this moist, warm air, possibly sweat, all around your breathing holes, which is exactly where the virus likes to make itself comfortable. So you're actually making yourself more susceptible.
Yeah.
So really, you just need to be mindful. Wash your hands, wash your face. Don't do stupid crap.
Yeah. Now, the other big news that came out on Friday was the brand new trailer for James Bond, the new Bond film, No Time to Die. Interesting. Like, a lot of people kind of thought that the trailer was just going to have the new dates on it for when it was coming out, but it's actually a completely recut trailer that I have to admit, I thought it actually looked pretty amazing. I'm not the biggest Bond fan in the world. Like, I could probably count on one hand how many Bond films I've enjoyed over the years. But I gotta say, this one kind of made me a little bit excited to see the film. It made it look more like a natural kind of action film. I always find with Bond films, one of the reasons I don't like them is they try to go over the top. Like,
yeah, I remember that one with when Pierce Brosnan was doing it, and there are these giant razor blade things coming up out of everywhere. I'm like, okay, you've just taken me out of it right now.
Yeah.
It was really unbelievable. Like, I think, was he running down a pier or something, and then enormous razor blades saw blades were coming up through the pier and swinging out from somewhere else. Like, who knows where they came from?
Yeah, but I always like find little things in them kind of like annoy me as well. Everybody talked about how great Spectre was, but I actually wasn't that big a fan of Spectre because I found this sounds really bad because I know so many people actually really really liked him in the role, but I found Christoph Waltz's acting as completely over the top in playing the character of Blofeld. It just, to me, didn't feel realistic at all. And then Skyfall I kind of liked, but the beginning annoyed me with the attack on the train. Like, the train just keeps on going, even though, like, its rear carriages are being attacked by like machines, and it's like, what, the train driver hasn't noticed what's going on, he's just going to keep driving. It's little things like that where they try to go over the top, whereas I find Mission Impossible much more believable, even though like their stunts go to the next level. Like, if you reviewed the Bond films on their stunts compared to Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible and Fast and Furious' stunts are so epic that they should be unbelievable, but they're not with the way that they're done. Whereas with Bond, I always find like the stunts and everything seem a little bit overdone. But this new one kind of looks like it may have taken a lesson or two from some of the Mission Impossible films and has epic stunts, but makes them believable. So I think the trailer for No Time to Die kind of gets the thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I guess I see what you're saying, but I think Bond has kind of had this tradition of big and amazing things. Like, there's always been the gimmicks, like the fancy equipment he gets. That's like Maxwell Smart had the shoe phone.
Yep.
He's got all these little things like poison darts and his like cufflink or something dumb like that. So I guess they've always kind of had to build on that and add a bit of spectacle. Over the years, it got a bit more ridiculous. But, I think with the ones they've done in the more recent years with Daniel Craig, I think they have been working to pull it back a bit and make it a bit more grounded.
Yeah.
Although, having, as you were going through what you thought of Spectre, I was trying to think, I can't differentiate any of the films. It's all kind of the same thing to me. I remember Casino Royale and a little bit of Skyfall, but everything that sort of happened in and around that, I'm just kind of, it does seem to be a bit more of the same again and again. So I don't know, maybe I'm just not paying enough attention.
Yeah, and the other kind of thing that they're talking about now, and I'm finding it really interesting, is looking at future Bonds, like, who do they go for? And I know that there's been so much speculation about it, but I'm going to throw a name out there that a friend and I were talking about the other day that I reckon would play a good Bond. Henry Cavill.
Yeah, he's definitely got the look. Looks good in a tux. You remember The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Yep.
He was in that. I think he's kind of done a similar role, so he could totally do it. Look, I'd back that casting. But again, in the end, I think it all comes down to the quality of the script and how they put it all together. So there are a few things you got to look at there.
Yeah, definitely. And so we'll go into our regular segments now, starting off with what have we been watching? What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? I tend to just keep stuff going all the time, and then I think about it, I'm like, what did I just watch? I was just watching, before recording this actually, the series Shameless. It started in the UK, but the US did their own version as well, which is still going. And so I've seen all of the US one, and I've got the first series of the UK one, which I loved, and I watched the US one because it was available on Netflix or something, and so I sat through all of that. But I really wanted to watch the UK one because that's kind of my first love. And finally got access to season 2 at the moment, so I've started going through that. I'm enjoying that. So it's not a new show, but a bit of fun. And I just watched the series Cursed. If you know, it's on Netflix. It follows kind of the Arthurian legends, but before the whole, King Arthur and Sword in the Stone and all that kind of stuff. It introduces some of the main characters, but it's basically around the woman who will become the Lady of the Lake, I think.
Yep.
So it's worth a watch. It kind of rewrites history a little bit, but all the legends around that there's so many differing tales, so you can pretty much do what you like with it.
Yeah.
But it's not been bad so far, so I think I'll tune in for the next season.
Yeah, I'm still making my way through the 100 at the moment, because I went right back to the start with the new season coming out. But something I watched this week that I found really interesting, and it kind of surprised me. As you all know, Victoria's still in lockdown while the rest of Australia is open at the moment. So I've been watching the movies that are coming out in cinemas everywhere else. I've been watching them as screeners, and Kriv Stenders, who was the director of Red Dog, he has just made a movie, a documentary about the life of Slim Dusty. And I found it really interesting because when we talk about icons of the Australian music scene, we talk about Jimmy Barnes, we talk about John Farnham, we talk about AC/DC, but one of the highest selling Australian music artists of all time is actually Slim Dusty. And Kriv Stenders' documentary goes right back and looks at how we possibly wouldn't have the music industry that we have today in Australia if we didn't have Slim Dusty. He kind of modernized country music in Australia. He was that kind of bridge between the music that your grandparents would have listened to or your great-grandparents would have listened to, and then kind of like what we consider modern music today. Slim Dusty basically packed up his entire life and headed out on the road for one of the longest tours ever, and one of the first tours that we kind of saw in Australia. And they look at what that meant, because in the past, before Slim Dusty, a musician would come and play at like a local dance kind of thing, like in your town, whereas Slim Dusty teamed up with one of the guys who was running carnivals and shows in Australia and used to do concerts at the show. And that was something that hadn't really been done successfully in Australia before. So it looks at how Slim Dusty changed the way music was kind of considered in Australia. And I know it sounds weird for us ones who are in our age group, because for me growing up, Slim Dusty was always an older artist. Like, I never saw Slim Dusty as being like someone who broke down doors and opened up things for Australian musicians. But going back and watching this documentary about his life, you realise that he actually did. But the great thing about this documentary is it not only has some great interviews, including with Slim Dusty's wife, who, again, was another game changer. She was one of the first female radio hosts in Australia. It looks at their songwriting that they did together, because she was actually more the songwriter in their relationship rather than him. But it also looks at how artists like Paul Kelly, Casey Chambers, all look back to Slim Dusty as one of the great songwriters in Australia. And you have these great performances during the documentary of them performing some of Slim Dusty's songs. So, yeah, it's an interesting music documentary, because I quite often find music documentaries a little bit dull to watch, but Kriv Stenders has done this really creative way of telling Slim Dusty's story in the documentary.
Well, that's pretty good, actually. I do like watching some of those series. I always catch bits and pieces of them. I'm like, what was the name of that show?
Yeah. Well, this one's called Slim and I, and it opens in cinemas everywhere except for Victoria this Thursday. So, yeah, if you want to go and check out and probably a very important part of Australian musical history, go and check out Slim and I. Now for the next regular segment, Bring It Back. What are you looking at for your Bring It Back show this week?
Well, it's funny. I grew up with so many shows and things that I loved, but when it comes to this segment, I start having a lot of difficulty kind of thinking, which is the one? Which is the one? And this time I thought, oh, let me turn to the cartoons that I loved. And the two that really stood out for me, well, it was actually three. The first I was thinking of was the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and of course the kind of series that goes along with it, She-Ra, Princess of Power. Now, they recently did like a She-Ra reboot, which really did not live up to what the classic series was like. So, yeah, I think there's enough to be said there. And I would like to say, let's do He-Man, but the thing is, there's actually a follow-up series to the original 80s cartoon coming up, produced by Kevin Smith. So I'm quite looking forward to that. I hope it, stays true to the original source. So instead of those, I'm going to say the original 1980s Transformers.
Oh, cool. I was going to say, with He-Man, the new one hasn't got Dolph Lundgren anywhere near it, has it?
No, he did the live action movie, which
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I still watch it every 5-10 years just to see. I've actually seen some kind of interviews about that, and it sounds like there might have been some extra stuff that was going to be there, but then didn't make it because they changed where they wanted to go with it or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the guy who played Skeletor, he apparently got really fit and thought he was going to have like the toy and cartoon version of the Skeletor costume. And then they said, no, you're not going to be showing any skin. So they put him in this big black cloak, and it was like, oh. he was so disappointed. It's like all this work he'd done to get fit, and then he does like almost no fighting.
Yeah. So the Transformers that you would bring back, would you bring it back as an animated series, or would you bring it back as a real life television series kind of thing?
Well, look, if we can build some transforming machines, that would be great. But yeah, no, I think go back to the cartoon. To be honest, I've actually already plotted out some kind of storylines that I think should happen. But so if Hasbro, you're looking to refresh something, come to me. Yeah.
Come to Harley, not Michael Bay.
Yeah, Michael Bay ruined your whole line, so please don't follow on with that. That was just wrong.
Although I did like the last Bumblebee movie.
Yeah, that's because they put someone else in charge of it.
Yeah.
And look, Hasbro are starting to learn now that, the fans of yesterday are the ones who are really paying attention to it. And so you see that the toys they're releasing now look a lot more like the original 80s incarnations. So now that they're catching on to that, now's the time to think about, well, hang on, let's go back to where it all started. So at the moment, they're doing a series that's being released on Netflix over like 3 different series. The first one, called Siege, has just been put up on Netflix, so if you haven't seen that, you can have a look. It kind of harkens back to, the very original Transformers, but then takes some inspiration from later things that have come up and rewrites it a little bit. So there are plus and minuses to it, but look, there's a whole nother topic there. But I think go right back to where you left off in, what was it, 1987, 88, something like that?
Yep.
And so they had 2 seasons of the cartoon, then a live-action movie, then a 3rd season which followed on from the movie. And then they kind of thought, well, let's not put too much money into this. And then for the 4th season, it was 3 episodes. 3 episodes just to sell the toys that they were releasing that year. And that was a bit disappointing, but, it kind of whet your appetite for what could come, but didn't. So in Japan, they decided, we're not going to go with your 3-episode rubbish, we're going to do a whole new series. And Japan veered off from the the original thing and started doing their own, and frankly was very successful, and a lot more effort went into the writing, I think, sometimes. So you could take a few notes from there. So I think, look, let's go back to where it was at. Where did it leave off? Where can the characters go? Hasbro should love it because they can re-release, old toys or update them and start again. And the collectors out there who are just fanatic about this stuff, me included, they will really buy into it. Look, I don't think you have anything to lose by trying this.
Yeah, definitely. And have you thought much about, like, the voice artists and stuff that you would use as well?
Well, you'd go back to the originals.
Yeah.
Whoever's still around. There was Chris Latta, who was famous for playing the voice of Starscream, and if you watch G.I. Joe, he did Cobra Commander. Unfortunately, he died some years ago, so he won't be back. But, there's been a couple other people who do fairly good goes at the voice. I think if they stick true to the character, I think there's someone that you could resurrect. And I think Starscream is one of those characters you need to bring back in the cartoon. He was probably one of the most dynamic characters. He stood out above the others because he had so much to do. There was so much character in him, where a lot of others were a bit bland. And I think one of the things to do is to kind of build more on those characters. Don't just think of them as robots, shooting at each other. Put a bit more into it, because as a kid, I know I really appreciated that. I didn't like sort of being talked down to or just being sold a toy type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any kind of memories from the old cartoon?
Yeah, it was one of those cartoons that I know was always around, but I really only went back and kind of revisited it a few years ago when we went to one of those Epic Madman sales, and I bought like the entire box set for like $20 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those series that you kind of would like to see brought back and expanded, because I think I'm kind of in a little bit of a minority when it comes to the Transformer movies, in that I didn't mind the first one. I thought it went downhill from there. Like, the first one, I'm not 100% convinced on, like, the whole comedic kind of side that they had for, for the cops and stuff like that. But I actually did like the way that the Transformers looked. It is a series that I would like someone to come on board and do something really good with it. And like, I'd kind of like to see the guy that you and I went and interviewed, Christopher Sabat, bring somebody like that on board who kind of knows how to recapture the magic of old series. And I don't know, like, my biggest fear would be if they did a Transformers animation these days, that they would go back to the original. They would make it Americanized and bring in American actors and stuff like that. And I think having someone like Christopher Sabat on board would make sure that there was a good mix kind of thing there. Because I kind of get the feeling that they would also like throw in some stuff from the movies as well. And I think that would be the wrong way to go. Like, I think they're learning with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that people want to see more of what it was like as an original series, not what's been happening in the more recent years. So, I think it would work, but I would like to see them recapture that old magic and not bring in any of the new stuff to it.
And that's kind of what I find is a fault with the series they just did. I think it was 6 episodes. The War for Cybertron Siege storyline. They keep adding in the whole Allspark thing, which is, from that first Transformers movie by Michael Bay, and that was the most annoying thing about the movie. It was just this thing that did nothing but gave life to machines and turned them into Transformers, and yet they all became Decepticons, so I don't know where the Autobots came from. There are so many things that just don't make sense with that film.
I think that's like asking where do Smurfs come from?
Yeah, exactly. They had no females until, wait a minute, suddenly there is.
Yeah, now they've got the new Gothic Smurfs too, Yeah,
oh god, who knows. But yeah, so there's a really good kind of folklore created for this series. As it went on, you got to see, into the ancient history about kind of where they came from. But I think it's only kind of touched upon it, and they haven't. I think back in the 80s, they didn't really consider them much more than robots, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah,
they're clearly alive, and then you saw in the movie that they can die and they have these kind of souls, and that was expanded upon in the Beast Wars series that followed on in the mid 90s, I think it was, 96 or something. And so it's like they have souls, and when they die, their souls leave their body. So yeah, you can do a lot more with it. It's kind of, though there is a lot of kind of a war theme and fighting, I think you can use this opportunity to teach kids about stuff, and that yes, people die and it's going to hurt, and how do you get on with it. So look, there's a lot more you can do with these shows. Don't just treat them like a toy ad. Don't be lazy with it. I do know back in the day there were some pretty good storylines, but sometimes, look, in a 25-minute cartoon, you kind of have to rush to the end sometimes, because it's like, oh, we've set up something really good. Oh, crap, how do we resolve that in 5 minutes? And they do something really cheap and lazy, which that always annoyed the crap out of me. So look, I think be more thoughtful with it. Do a bit more like the Japanese cartoons. Like, you have a complete story in an episode, but they carry on. It's what we do now. Like, since Buffy, all the series it's a season-long arc. So that's what you've got to do now, I think.
Yeah. The other thing I'd love to see someone tackle with Transformers, and I know it's from a mess of a movie, but the folklore that they kind of touched on in Transformers The Last Night. Now, I know it's a god-awful movie, and it's probably one of the worst that they've ever done of Transformers, because it was all over the place, but I would actually like someone to tackle that folklore that was in that movie about the Transformers have been here since King Arthur's days, and have a big part of Asian folklore and stuff like that. I would like to see that actually expanded into a watchable series. I'll say that, considering what the movie was like. But I find it really cool that you could have had Transformers be parts of some of the world's the historical moments, like the moon landing, for example. There's always been these questions about, well, with the moon landing at that time, you had trouble sending a telegram from Australia to England, so how did they have clear radio connections from the moon to Earth? I would love to have a series where it's explained, well, the rocket was actually a transformer. They don't make that public, but that's actually what it was.
But, they didn't actually make it to the moon. It was just filmed in the Nevada desert.
Yeah, or things that World War II was basically an Autobots Decepticons war. The Decepticons were with Germany and Japan, and the Autobots teamed with the Allies. I'd love to see historical moments like that have the Transformers as part of it.
Yeah, I think they've done a few things like this in the past, usually in the comic books. I don't know, usually those things don't really fit in well with what's already established, so that would be kind of a parallel line type series, which, look, it could be good fun to work with. What could Transformers turn into in the age of knights and castles and stuff? That would be an interesting thing to see what people come up with.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the period piece looks sometimes pretty good. But trying to fit it in with established history is another thing. So then that would be kind of an alternate line, I think.
Yeah, Captain America driving an Autobot tank during World War II. There you go. There's a.
Well, look, it's partially possible for them to do something like that because Hasbro have the rights to do all the Marvel toy characters. So why not do a crossover line? They've done it before. Transformers and Star Wars, Transformers and Animorphs. So look, why not?
Yeah.
Marvel superheroes, Transformers. Probably has been done, actually.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into the next regular series that we were kind of going to be looking at, and that's fantasy casting. And we're kind of looking at where Marvel is going to go now, because Marvel, of course, killed off, or I should put that in inverted commas, killed off some of their popular characters at the end of the last phase of what they call their Marvel movies. But there's a lot of talk that some of those characters that were kind of killed off may come back in some of the future movies as in flashbacks. Some might even come back as regular characters kind of thing. And it kind of got us thinking about who would we have play some of those roles if that was the case, and who would we like to see come into the new Marvel series as a character, but who would play them. And one of the ones that I was thinking about was, it seems everything I read at the moment, they're talking more and more about wanting to bring back Captain America in some form because of the popularity of the character. And going through and looking at some of the people that they've talked about, I'm actually even more torn because there's some actually really good choices on there. They talked about Shannon Tatum, who I think, his acting skills aren't great, but could he play Captain America? Yeah, he probably could. John Krasinski, who of course was basically known for his comedic roles before he did Jack Ryan, and you'd probably have to muscle him up a little bit because in Jack Ryan, I always found the whole idea that he was an ex-soldier a little bit unbelievable because he really does look like the office boy that's suddenly a hero kind of character. So yeah, you might have to muscle him up a little bit, but again, he's someone that could probably play the part quite well. There's so many actors out there that I would love to see kind of come into the franchise. We talked before about bringing in Fantastic Four into the new series, and I think that's like a really, really good idea. I think they're characters that could potentially work. And look, I wasn't actually let down by the Miles Teller Fantastic Four. I actually thought that had legs, and then all of a sudden, it was being killed off, and I was like, actually, my issue with that movie was only the last quarter of the film. I liked the first 3 quarters of the film. So I don't know whether or not you could actually have...
Tell me what in that film you liked.
I liked the original setup of it. I really enjoyed the first 3 quarters of the film. It was kind of like what it was like with Wonder Woman. It almost felt like there was a different director brought on board in the end. But I almost wonder whether it'd be worth actually going back and recasting some, but keeping some of them as well, because I thought some of those kids actually worked in the parts that they actually played. The thing is,
they shouldn't really be kids.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be kids, and I don't know, it's kind of putting a weird emphasis on it. It's kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of weird things that get done. I preferred, comparatively, the ones that were out, 15 years ago, with Michael Chiklis and, Chris Evans.
I was just going to say that. I was going to go, hang on a second, you're going to have... I was just going to say, you're going to have people out there right now crawling into a corner going, oh no, split timelines, Johnny Storm.
You know what? I would love to see that. Just, you have to do a crossover.
Yeah.
Captain America and the Human Torch, and hey, you're quite handsome.
And for people who are wondering out there why we laugh about that, it's because a couple of years ago I was at Comic-Con and there was a guy there who, let's just say, was a little bit special, and people were taking photos, and a Batman jumped in a photo with a Spider-Man, and the guy flipped out, crawled into a corner, and started screaming, different universes. So it's become an in-joke with my friends and I when something like that happens in the pop culture world.
Well, look, we've had Michael Keaton in Spider-Man and Batman, and now he's coming back into DC, so Hey, look, it's kind of inevitable at this point.
I reckon it's easier though to have a character go from Marvel to DC or DC to Marvel than what it is have them inside the play like a similar character in the same universe, because I know there was a lot of people who kind of had some issues about Deadpool and the casting when that first came out, because he'd previously been in one of the Wolverine movies. But yeah, like I think Ben Affleck going from Marvel to DC kind of worked without too much of a bit of it.
With Ryan Reynolds, he was actually playing Deadpool in both of those movies.
Yeah, but it kind of flips people out.
The one from Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine was just appalling.
Yeah.
Everyone hated it, including him. So that's why you get that scene in the movie where he time travels back and shoots the other version of himself.
But if they did actually do recasting of the Fantastic Four, what about The Rock playing Ben Grimm?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I'd actually kind of like to bring Chris Evans back to play Johnny Storm.
just to mess with people's head. That's the only reason I want that to happen.
Yeah. Sue Storm might be a bit of a hard one to cast. Like, you could possibly even get Jessica Alba to come back and do it. Like, she...
Oh, I like Jessica Alba. What is she doing now?
I was just about to say I just watched a new movie of hers, and then I realised it wasn't a new movie of hers I just watched. It was actually a movie that she made, like, 10, 15 years ago.
Because I think I heard about her going into something, and I can't remember what it was. Because it's been a while since I've actually really seen her and stuff.
Yeah, like she's making a lot of B grade movies at the moment. She's in a new she's in a new series called LA's Finest. Her last big blockbuster was Mechanic Resurrection. So, yeah, she's basically been doing a lot of B-grade movies just recently. So, yeah, I guess you could bring her back, kind of thing. I think
it's someone who's got to be kind of strong, kind of has good chops with the acting skill. I think a bit needs to be put into this character, not just to be the token girl of the team, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, maybe that's what's kind of failed with the past couple of incarnations, that there's... the earlier ones were a bit more what people think of as comic booky, and it's not really what we do now. There's a lot more character depth and stuff that we try to put in now, so we wanted to be a bit deeper for each of the characters. This is why I think as well, don't make them teenagers like the last one, because, I mean, that was a bit... the Sue Storm in that just did not work. It was kind of... it's like sitting through Twilight.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was just wrong.
Can I throw a name out there for Sue Storm?
Yeah, go for it.
Lindsay Morgan, Raven from the 100.
Ah. That would actually be kind of interesting. Yeah, I'd audition her for sure.
Yeah, I just think that Lindsay Morgan, she's kind of got the look of a young Jessica Alba. She's probably got better acting ability than a young Jessica Alba. But yeah,
dance like honey there.
She's kind of a rough and tough kind of actress. So yeah, I don't know. She's someone that I could definitely see playing Sue Storm.
I'd actually like to see her do an audition for it.
Yeah.
With a good script, see what she does. That would actually be quite interesting.
So, yeah, there's...
I think the hard one to cast is Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. I think he's got to be someone who comes across as intelligent, shouldn't be a kid, needs to be kind of... You know, he's always kind of had the grey streak in his hair, but I can understand they might want to not cast anyone too old. So, I reckon he's got to be in his 30s at least anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe late 30s, maybe. I don't know. So they've got to be physically up to it, but And then again, he's not really a fighter. He's a stretcher.
Yeah. The funny thing about
he's a grower.
the funny thing about casting superheroes is I've always found from the superheroes that have been cast over the past few years that have worked so well, it's always someone that you would have never thought about playing that role that works so well. And I guess I'm thinking like Robert Downey Jr. with Iron Man. Like, I remember when
I heard that, I thought, oh my god, that is the most perfect casting. I had never thought of that.
Yeah, but when it was originally announced, people were like, nah, he can't do the role. Like, it was, and like we were saying last week about the last few Batmans, they've always said the same thing. Like, oh no, he's...
Yeah, it's true.
It's always kind of like the ones from left field kind of thing that end up kind of working so well because they're kind of someone that you never ever imagined kind of playing the part because they are so left field. And I guess I'm kind of like thinking of people like Chris Pratt, like when he was first selected for Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I remember when that was first announced, people were like, what? Chris Pratt? Like, the fat guy from Parks and Recreation? Like, are they serious? And, like, they didn't realize that he'd got into shape to play Quill so well. But it's always kind of like those choices that that end up, like, really surprising you. And people were the same, I know, when, like, Dave Bautista...
Comment, sorry, all I've got stuck in my head is that line from Guardians of the Galaxy. You're one sandwich away from a beast.
Yeah. Like, even with Dave Bautista being selected to play Drax, people were kind of, like, really skeptical of it. And it's like...
That was such a good choice, though. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But now, like, because I know there's rumors going around that apparently, like, they originally wanted Vin Diesel to play that part kind of thing and then gave him Groot instead. But it's so weird that sometimes when they make choices like that, like, I'm thinking early DC as well, like, Michael Keaton was such a left field choice for Batman. Like, the guy was known for comedy, and it worked.
He was traditionally a character actor, so...
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't do action films or whatever, but the thing is, he's so in-depth in the character, that's what made him the perfect choice, like...
Yeah. And then you get, like, ones where they were, like, where they cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and everyone was like, oh, that's gotta be brilliant. And it's like, no, it wasn't. Like, it didn't really work at all.
It's because the script was rubbish, and the direction from, the previous movie before that was just... They were going in the wrong direction completely. They got rid of Tim Burton, which made Michael Keaton not want to continue, because they could tell it was just being turned into crap.
Yeah.
And it was, which is so sad because it had something so strong.
Yeah, and I guess, like, even with Ben McKenzie being in Gotham, I remember when that was originally cast and people were like, what, the kid from the OC? Like, but, like, people kind of forget that actors not only have range, but they also change. Like, yeah, okay, he was cast in a kid's drama when he was younger, but at some stage he was going to have to play like an adult role. It's just the way it kind of works. So, yeah, like, that's why I think with going forward with the Marvel Universe, perhaps they don't always need to go for the obvious choice for one of these characters. And, like, I've been hearing lots of things recently where apparently, like, Marvel and DC have kind of had a bit of a race to try and get Tom Cruise into one of the franchises. Like, they've been trying to come up with a character that he could play in it, and I think sometimes that's a little bit dangerous to do that, because Tom Cruise is a great actor, and he has his own franchise with Mission Impossible. Like, not trying to take anything away from the guy.
And Jack Reacher as well now.
Yeah.
So, hey, look, if they got a spy role for him, sure, cast him in that.
Yeah, that's where I think, though, sometimes in Hollywood people go wrong. And, like I say, Tom Cruise was originally cast in Mission Impossible, and people were like, what, are you kidding? Like, he's not going to play that role very well. It's like, what, 20 years now he's been playing the role, and...
Yeah, but that's because he's running the operation now.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, like...
It's good quality.
That's what I mean, when he was originally cast in the role, people questioned it, but but it's worked. Whereas I kind of sometimes have an issue when they say that, oh, we're developing a character for an actor. Like, yeah. I'm always someone who I believe, like, even with my own writing, I prefer to write my characters and then look at who can play them. And sometimes I think you're best not to go for the most obvious choice, because I think that's kind of sets it up for disappointment in a way. Like, audition people, find the right people for the role, because someone might pop up out there that you didn't expect to be as good as what they were going to be. Like,
yeah, that's right.
I just finished watching a documentary that looked at the making of the Mighty Ducks, and it's really interesting that the three people that the lead character in the Mighty Ducks got narrowed down to was Jake Gyllenhaal, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Joshua Jackson. And the director at the time, like the guys behind the movie at the time, were being told that they should go for Leonardo DiCaprio because he wasn't famous yet, but he was on the way, and people knew that he was on the way. But they went with Joshua Jackson because they said Joshua Jackson fitted the role a lot better than what Leonardo DiCaprio did. So yeah, sometimes I think you've got to go with that gut feeling of which actor actually fits the character more than does the character fit the actor.
Yeah, there's a strong tradition, especially in like Hollywood and America, of casting a name that will sell a movie. So who's famous at the moment? Oh, okay, this one's really popular. Let's put them in the lead role, but they don't suit the role. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that will sell the movie.
I think it happens. I think it happens to The Rock a lot. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think the movie that came out a couple of years ago where he's trying to save like the giant gorilla.
Yeah, Rampage.
Yeah, I love that movie. Like, what they did with that movie was fantastic, but there's times when I watch that movie that I think The Rock was miscast, because you've got like a guy who they also, oh, he can't be a hero, look at him. It's like, well, yeah, I am looking at him, and that's why I think he could be a hero. The guy's exactly 7 foot tall and built like a tank. Like,
I couldn't possibly be a hero.
Yeah, and just putting glasses on him doesn't work for me. Like,
exactly, yeah. There's some really stupid crap they do.
Yeah, and which is why I love with Jumanji, the jokes that they've done in Jumanji, where like the people body swap and stuff, and yeah.
That's what makes that movie, yeah.
But
I was thinking, it's gone out of my head now. Yep, no, it's gone. Okay, that was good. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Well, I guess that does actually kind of wrap up today, because, yeah, we've looked at all the different things that we were going to look at on the show, but we would like
Yes, we want to ask people to think about what movie or TV show could we bring back, and just pretend that Dave and I are going to be the producers, we're going to cast it, so we're going to come up with our dream casting and ideas for the production. So, yeah, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's about it. Yeah, let us know. Also, let us know like who some of your fantasy castings are out there as well. Who would you like to see play a character in a movie, and we'll discuss it on the show. Like, yeah, if you think that the next James Bond should be Tom Hiddleston, which a lot of people seem to think, put it forward, and yeah, we'll discuss it on the show. So definitely do that. Just
and where can they send their suggestions to?
Yeah, just hit us up on any of the socials, basically, where you found the podcast. Where you found the podcast, hit us up. You can hit us up directly through Spreaker. If you found it on Spreaker, you can hit us up on the Subculture or the Heavy Cinema Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, basically everything but TikTok. We've got it. So, yeah, hit us up on it. But that's it for this episode of Subculture. I've been Dave G.
And I've been the new Wonder Woman.
And we'll be back very, very soon with another episode of Subculture.